order. We'll have an hour. Just keep the mayor's open remarks and today. So the fifth item that I have to deal with is approval of the agenda. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shaver. Be resolved that the agenda of September 27, 2021 be adopted. Members of council, do we have anything that we want to add or change with regard to the agenda?
Yes, your worship, sorry.
Go ahead.
We'd like to add this particular letter as correspondence.
All right.
I get all the note ones. You want that? That's okay.
Okay, but having received the document, I don't think it changes the agenda. It's
No.
just simply part of the documents for the file. Okay, I have one to suggest, and that is we're going to be hearing from David Sabelski with regard to the Garden of Hope in delegations and presentation. We also have a motion with regard to the Bill Fake Memorial Award nomination, who, as you're aware of, I was going to be approaching David. And he is our nominee, so I would like to deal with that motion while he's here. So it would mean that we would just insert that between the Garden of Hope delegation and the H&D Properties delegation. Is council okay with that? Okay, I'm looking at a consensus, so thank you very much. So I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. So, our next is the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Shaver, seconded by Councillor Henry. Motion reads, be it resolved that council approve the minutes of the September 13, 2021 council meeting as distributed to all members. Members of council, do you have any errors or omissions to report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Having approved the motion, I'll ask if anybody has a disclosure of student interest, and if so, provide the general nature thereof. Seeing none, we're on to F, which is business arising from the minutes. Does anybody wish to raise anything from the previous minutes? Seeing none, we are on to delegations. As I indicated, we have two.
There's Stuart.
David Sabelski, who is joined by his wife Colleen.
I don't know. I just clicked in and got it.
Mary Fraser, who is representing H&D Properties. So I'm going to invite David to make his presentation. That's great.
Well, thank you for having Colleen and I here tonight. First of all, we have a brief presentation, not very brief, pictorial of our gardens. We probably won't get through it all, but we just wanted you to get a sense, if you haven't visited our gardens, kind of the spirit of them, what they look like. So we'll keep this as brief as we can. Maitland Garden of Hope is related to our motion tonight, or to our request, which is to enter into a land use agreement with the township for the use of the township property that adjoins our property in Maitland on Jones Court. So Maitland Garden of Hope, we opened it in 2011. Our mission is to provide a garden habitat to aid in the conservation and enjoyment of our native butterflies, honeybees, and birds. So all of our gardens that we create, we ask ourselves, does it help with the conservation of those particular species? And if they do, then we plant it. We've had approximately 8,000 visitors to our gardens since we've opened in 2011. We were the first garden, we believe, in Eastern Ontario in recent times to be open for the whole season as a private entity. When we first started, we didn't know how successful it would be. Within a year, we were receiving bus tours from Quebec, Toronto, Ottawa, Niagara, and that has continued ever since. We've attracted a lot of special interest groups, artists, photographers, horticultural groups, and wedding parties for pictures as well during that period of time. I also want to emphasize that we've had many international visitors and visitors from the United States, especially upstate New York and Pennsylvania. I want to stress as well that we recommend our local gardens, garden centers, and local businesses. When people come to visit, they always ask, where can we eat? Where do we buy that plant? And particularly Colville's Garden Center, which is just down the road here, have become very good friends of ours, and they're very good suppliers of quality plants, and I see they just expanded, so that's good news as well. We started as a result of the success that we had over our first few years by ourselves. In our second year, we hit 1,000 visitors in the garden just by having our own website and our own brochure. By the way, we have 28 theme gardens, over 5,000 perennials, many flowering shrubs as well. We have a monarch way station and various pollinator gardens throughout the property. So as a result of that success, we approached the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, the economic development people, and specifically Ann Weir, with the idea of forming a partnership to develop a garden trail for all of Leeds and Grenville, and they agreed to do so. So Colleen and I worked with Ann to develop that program, and now Ann and I are co-chairs of the Thousand Islands and Rideau Canal Garden Trail. There are 14 public and private gardens that are part of that initiative, and there is a website that you can go to. Just Google Thousand Islands Garden Trail, and it comes up. And we're happy with the 150th anniversary of Canada. We were awarded a top 50 garden tourism award, the top 150 garden tourism award winner for all of Canada. So that was a big deal for us. The last 2 years have been difficult, as you can understand, with COVID. So many of the gardens, including ours, have been closed to the public. We've allowed some people to come through this year that have been double vaxxed and want to see the gardens. And we hope that in following years, starting next year, that we'll be able to re-energize the garden trail and kind of get it, moving forward again in a very positive way. Colleen and I have been involved in many speaking engagements over the last 8 or 10 years as a result of our garden escapades throughout Eastern Ontario and Quebec. Topics that we have presented are native pollinators, the plight of the monarch, native butterflies in our area, honeybees. Colleen is an apiarist, and we talk about the garden trail every time that we get a chance. I was asked to speak at a Canadian Garden Tourism Conference on grassroots gardening tourism in Leeds and Grenville in 2017 in Toronto. And these were the top botanical gardens in Canada and the United States. So it was an honor to be there for that. Getting on to the township property and why we're here tonight. The property next to us was gifted to the township approximately 20 years ago. I don't know the exact date, but it was around 19, 20, 21 years ago. It's approximately 2 acres right next to our property. And it was gifted because the landowner, which was a trust company, had applied for a building permit, and the council of the day had decided that it was inappropriate to issue a building permit because of problems with drainage and water usage. So no building permit was issued. The township at that time accepted the gift from the, after that, they accepted the gift from the owner of the property, and it's sat ever since. Through the course of the last 20 years, admittedly, we have encroached slightly on the property with building. Our gardens have just expanded a little bit.
Uncontrolled enthusiasm, we confess.
And rightfully so, we should have come to you right from the very start and asked perhaps for a land use agreement. But we didn't know at that time that we were opening our gardens to the public and they were going to kind of expand the way that they have. But I will assure you that we have been very good stewards of the land. We have planted many native trees and pollinators on our property as well as on the township property.
Can I talk about the
Yes,
Trans-Northern Pipeline goes behind us. It is on our property. And we're very cognizant of the negative press that that pipelines get. So we approach them with we have a win-win situation for you. If you give us the money to buy native seeds, with plant seeds, we will put it down. We will be the stewards of that area. And it will bring in a lot of birds, butterflies. It is the monarch migration path as well. And we would look after it and do due diligence on that property. And they said yes. And we made a press release, sent it to the local newspaper. It was published. We have a sign that we put up that says, thanks to Northern Pipeline, we now have pollinator plants all down the trail.
so that property is on the backside of our property as well as the township property. And that's the pipeline that goes through and it connects to the Maitland ski trails. So over the past 26 years since I've lived there, we have built a trail through the township property, from our property, through the township property, connecting to the pipeline, and then onto the ski trails. During that period of time, we have maintained the ski trails by hauling in hundreds of yards of gravel and stone dust using my ATV and digging it by hand to keep the trails up to date, including the pipeline trail and the access trail that goes from our property through the township property and then beyond to this Maitland ski trails. Just wanted to add, last winter was trying for everyone with COVID, but a real positive was the number of people using those trails. It went way up, way up.
Cross country.
Virtually every
walking.
day we saw people using the trails going through our property, through the township property and on onward. So I think it's really important that we try and maintain that enthusiasm in the community. We have planted a number of native trees and pollinators I mentioned, and we continue to be aware of the fact that we need to be good stewards of the land and continue to do that. So that gives you an overview of the township property as it relates to ours. So our request for you to consider is to enter into a land use agreement with the township and us for the use of the township property to maintain the gardens and to continue to provide access trail to the Maitland ski trails. Be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, David. Yes, I'll ask council, do you have any questions regarding the proposal? Councilor Sample-Holman, go ahead.
I'm not really sure how those kind of agreements work. But maybe you guys do a little bit more, maybe somebody else. Liability and insurance on that, if that was something that we considered. How, do you have any idea or looked into how that would work?
We have had a separate liability policy every year that we've been part of the Thousand Islands and Rita Canal Garden Trail. And it's a separate commercial liability policy that covers any usage of our gardens.
Okay.
So if we go back to the Thousand Islands trails next year, then we will keep that policy.
Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much for what you've been doing all these years. I used to live directly behind you.
Oh.
My house isn't there right now, on the other side of Trans-Northern. And I lived there when children were raised there. The house is, like I said, the house isn't there anymore. But I know the land very well, so the trails and everything else. So what you've been doing with your property and the township's property is fantastic. I know we're gonna work into an agreement, with the township, but I'm thinking, it will still more than likely, well, still remain in the township's hands, the property. I think there's a couple things that definitely be open to all public because it is a public property. But I'd like to see some sort of sign now. What I mean by sign, not a big ugly white sign like our Parks Department put up all our. Roads Department, I should say.
I wrote no.
But maybe a plaque, a nice plaque in the township to do that, saying that the property states nice that it is, property does belong to Augusta Township for the enjoyment of the residents and tourists and everything else. And that way, in the future, because councils change and staff change, and it'd be nice to have a plaque that kind of clarifies it, just a small one in your garden somewhere or in front of the garden.
We were, if I could just interject
Yeah.
on that point, because it dovetails with what you're
Okay.
saying. We were hopeful that the township would agree to put a culvert and an access directly off of Jones Court, right beside our property, that connects the trail that connects to our property. And so people could access directly off of Jones Court without having to enter our property and then onto the township property. But I would say that we would continue to maintain it on behalf of the people of Maitland, as we've continued to do over the last 20 years. So if there was an access, not a major road, just a small culvert with a nice sign, I think that would be entirely appropriate.
But again, thank you very much for what you're doing.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say thank you too for what you've been doing for the last 20 years. Make it beautiful.
Well, thank you. Well, I hope you all come and see our gardens.
Yes.
We got a waiver.
You have CAO on in?
I just want to make, ask a question and make a comment. A few of us were recently at the garden with David and Colleen. I personally was just literally swept off. How beautiful it was. Now, the one thing that did catch my attention, and I haven't mentioned this to David or Colleen, and I noticed they didn't mention it themselves yet. They talked about all the plantings they've made and all the work they do. So up until this point, who's been paying for all?
Us.
And do you mind sharing how much per year generally you've been spending?
Well, before you came to the garden, Rob and Brian and Myron came in mid or late August. And so I did a calculation of how much we've spent so far this year on the gardens, and I didn't even want to tell Colleen.
That's how I feel about it.
Our kids say we need plant intervention.
Yeah. It was $24,000 so far this year, and that was to the middle of August. And so by the end of the gardening season, which is another few weeks, it takes us about 3 weeks to shut the gardens down. We have to cut everything down. We're transplanting right now, so we hired 3 people to help us with that. So we'll end up with close to $30,000. So it was a little extraordinary this year because we've lost a lot of ash trees, and so we've been replacing them, including replacing some on township property with maples and various other trees that would be appropriate. So our expenses are extraordinarily high this year, but on average, about $20,000 a year would be average. Most of the gravel that we buy ourselves, and I hire people and we distribute it. I try and get as much volunteerism as I can. And frankly, the township has donated 2 or 3 loads of gravel over the years that we've used on the trails as well. But somebody has to do it, and you know, it's frankly, we're the beneficiaries of it because a day before yesterday, I have to tell you this, I know our time is up. We took 2 friends of ours just on an ATV ride. I have a side-by-side that I do about 5 kilometers an hour. They wanted to see the trails, and we put gravel down all the trails so you can drive them nice and easy. And we're driving along, and all of a sudden I look behind me, and there's a little fawn following us on the trail, this little deer. And it stopped and walked right up to us within 15 feet, and we have a video of it. It's absolutely magical back there.
And I just wanted to add as well, that, we've all enjoyed the joy of seeing monarch butterflies, seeing Ontario pollinators. We've also enjoyed listening to pileated woodpeckers, barred owls, and so on. We want our grandchildren to also have that joy. And if we want that, we have to step up to the plate. And we have to make sure that what we're doing in our generation is for the following generations as well. And we both feel this very strongly.
Go ahead.
Worship Council, I'll just be fast. I did actually go through this in, your reference, this is your benefit, that the house is not your benefit. It's ours. I'm blown away. I got a tear in my eye right now because I did go to the Garden of Hope. I'm not gonna say it transformed me, council, but,
Yeah, oh.
it did make a difference. I just want council to know that these folks are, besides superior, this place is mad. And I mean, I'm passionately, you guys know I'm passionate. This is absolutely, it's breathtaking. You can't, these words do nothing, I'm sorry. Please get up there and have a look, and if we can benefit or if we can help out in any way, we should do it. You can only have either a beautiful culvert or a beautiful sign, not gonna give over.
Yeah. Just one quick question. It was about the culvert, Brad, that they mentioned. You've been there and you saw it. Everything they mentioned should be,
There's
you don't see any, like, major problems with anything
no
there.
issues, and I would love to, or I would encourage, yes.
Good. No, that's all good. Thank you.
Board delegations decisions aren't made tonight,
No.
but the CAO is certainly aware of it. I'll be looking for it. I'm happy you took the extra time and I skipped my mayoral comments for that. Mainly because we have the next item, which is the nomination for Bill Baker Award. And I think in your talk, you didn't mention the fact that you don't charge admission. And more than that, you do collect money though for children in Kenya, I believe.
Yeah, it says it right, yeah.
So that is absolutely fantastic. I know I visited the gardens. I recall just after I got elected in my first term as mayor, you calling to say, have you been here? And I had not.
Yes.
And the fact that you were seeking assistance to try and use that to market and help tourism in the area. And I recall being excited about it. And I was even more excited knowing or later learning that you had about the same time approached Ann Weir and she picked up on it right away. And so that was the start of turning it in from something just in Augusta Township to something all over Leeds and Grenville. And as I say, over the time, I've known your principal role in that whole unfolding of that project. And that goes to so much that both you and Colleen have done for this community and Augusta Township. I want to thank you well beyond the gardens just for being the kind of people you are. Go ahead.
Were you going to be through after this or?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think they had a much longer presentation. So there's a PowerPoint that goes along with it. I'll try to make sure that the counselors get it by email if I can. If I can get it through to them, then they can.
Just a series of pictures on the
Yeah.
garden.
Show that.
That we do. I just wanted to mention on closing as well that we appreciate your support, Bill, and the support of the people in this room, because when we got going, we had no idea where this would lead to. And you have been very supportive, so thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just ask you to stick around if you're interested in the next one, which has to do with the nomination for the Bill Baker Award. And I'll just say to our HD property people, this shouldn't take too long. We did let council know at the last meeting that the nomination for the Bill Baker Memorial Award for Economic Development Leadership was coming up, and we were having to make a decision who to nominate. And at the Deputy's Economic Development and Tourism Committee, it was discussed and there was solid support for it. So once I made the contact with David and confirmed that he was willing to let his name stand, then it was just a matter of getting the formal work done, which it has been done. I have a motion, and tonight it's moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shaver, it reads, whereas through the establishment of the Maitland Garden of Hope, David Cebulski has demonstrated outstanding commitment and leadership, resulting in the growth and vitality of Augusta Township and Leeds and Grenville. Now, therefore, be resolved that council supports the nomination of Dave Cebulski for the Bill Fake Award. Any more comments from council? The only thing I can say is that it's an unfortunate feature of the Bill Fake Award that it's not made to two people. One person has to be named, and certainly Colleen, the role that you have played is well known and
Thank you.
and appreciated too. So with that, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of this motion? This motion is unanimous, and I will be conveying that to the Leeds and Grenville, to the counties.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time again.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
I think we're using that again,
We have
Brad.
another one.
I think this one, is there one outside or?
Yeah.
Or outside? Is virtual or they're in the lobby?
No, I think you guys are, if you would like to come in, we're ready.
No.
Mayor can introduce you. Oh, are you done?
Chair, we don't have, you're open.
Got my mute button.
Oh, that's all right. I know we know where.
He may.
I can get one of these.
You sure?
Yeah, I would. Sure.
All right, so welcome, Mark Fraser and Don Duncan from H&E Properties. And the note here says response to township on biogas plant.
Correct. Good evening. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mary Fraser, and this is my partner, Don Duncan, and Don owns H&E Properties. It owns H&E Properties and the site of the former Prax Air. We are here today to express our shock and disappointment with you, Mr. Mayor, of your comments made to the council and staff in the meeting of September 13th, sorry. The shock comes from the fact that we've been meeting with the council, meeting with the township over the last 3.5 years with the purpose of bringing a site plan proposal to the township in the very near future. We have met with 2 CAOs, 2 township planners, chief financial officer, building inspector, and several support staff. We have introduced to our partners CH4 Biogas, and several other emails have been shared with these people and shared CH4. We have done our best to keep the township updated on the progression of our plans. In all these meetings and information sharing, we were assured of our zoning, encouraged to move ahead, and felt good support for introducing new technology into the township. Mr. Mayor, you were never around. You never attended meetings, never asked questions, never participated in discussions, didn't reply in emails, and frankly showed zero leadership for the township. Therefore, I think this ignorance needs to be addressed. To start with, your comparison of ED19 to our project is simply a statement of deflection. There's nothing similar, Mr. Mayor, to our project in ED19. ED19 was a mega landfill, a proposed mega landfill. ED19 was to be built on hundreds of acres of rural property and farmland. The colossal cost to this project would have been a tax burden and financial hardships on the townships and the counties involved. ED19 was essentially dig big hole, put in garbage, cover, and repeat for years and years to come. Our project only accepts our organic waste in SSO, source separated organics. Our plant is designed to completely digest organic feedstock in 28 days. Our plant will produce renewable natural gas, CO2, and organic fertilizer. Our plant will be built by us. Our plant will be a state-of-the-art facility, moving us into the 21st century technology, giving us a fighting chance against methane gas emissions and climate change. Your statement of comparison only demonstrates your lack of knowledge and your desperate need to blacken our project. Our project is not black, Mr. Mayor, it is green. Your first comments concerns about the shower of emails that you received, whose raised legitimate concerns about smell and traffic. Through the Freedom of Information Act, Mr. Mayor, I have obtained all those emails sent to the township over the 4, 5, 6 weeks. And there's a lot of them. A large portion of these emails came from a single person who has showered you with emails to discredit our project. Not only has this resident bombarded and bullied the township with 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of constant emails, outdated and inaccurate information, and on many occasions, outright fabrications and lies to support his position. He has convinced a number of neighbors that our plant would only degrade the property values and their ability to enjoy their properties. His assumptions, innuendos, and outright deceit include trying to label our site a brownfield site, allegations of asbestos, removal of hazardous material, unauthorized electrical connections, and hazardous materials in the yard. This man describes himself as a retired plant manager from the DuPont site. During his time at DuPont in Maitland, it was peak manufacturing. Over 800 people were employed, several hundred offshoot jobs, and businesses supported the plant and their processes. He fully knows what a brownfield site is, as DuPont has been dumping hazardous waste and chemicals onto 478 acres of Augusta Township for years. Property that is now brown zone, to be on use from chemical contamination, and some consider it forever chemicals, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to monitor. And this is the man you consider some sort of advocate for the environment? This man, desperate to convince his neighbors of the inevitable stink and smells he assumes will be admitted, has gone to great lengths to discredit our planned facility. He has called several ministries with false information and allegations regarding work being done, all for his own entertainment and satisfaction, in hopes of creating doubts and records of wrongdoings and penalties. His accusations have been proven unfounded, deceitful, and may be deemed libelous. His call to the electrical authority. We received a letter. It has come to our attention that you and your employees have done electrical wiring to above location without filling the notification with the Electrical Safety Board Authority. Along with that notification, we were threatened to have fines, prosecution, and maybe disconnected. The truth is, Mr. Mayor, is that we have not been doing any electrical installations there. The truth is, Mayor, there is no power going to that plant. The truth is that in year 2020, we had people photographed. We had people photographed and charged that were stealing electrical equipment, copper wire, and transformers, copper wire, electrical panels and equipment. We have an estimate of over $475,000 in damages that were done to the electrical system and equipment in that property. We have not repaired this. we don't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair. It remains the same. These thieves have literally made us powerless in that plant, and it remains that way. A 100% lie that caused time and effort by the electrical authority just for this man's entertainment. And this man provided, and this man you consider is providing trusted and accurate information. The man called the Ministry of the Environment, feeding the misinformation about waste material, leaving the site, hazardous insulation and granular material.
I'm going to stop you there, Speaker, and just ask you for a clarification. The purpose
Yes,
of the delegation is to bring information and some kind of request to council. Can you give me an idea of what your request is going to be? Because essentially, you're taking an individual who has written lots of emails and for whom I've had no personal day-to-day contacts other than receiving those emails. And you're essentially going through a litany of claims against them. And I don't understand why you're bringing it here.
okay, so what I am doing is I'm defending the comments that you made. What we intend to bring to council tonight is the fact that we want it to be reconsidered, that our project is not something that should be shut down, that should be looked at. And we want the council and the members of the council and the staff to be aware that this is a good project and this shouldn't be shut down by one man and one man's vendetta.
Are you aware that this council at the last meeting agreed to a motion to establish an independent review of the emails that have gotten in and asked essentially for this engineering company to work out the facts for us?
I have. I am aware, I'm not of the whole, what you just said. I am aware that
Are
you
you aware it
have
was a
made a motion.
unanimous vote?
Yes, I know that you had made an emotion and I was not aware whether it's.
So isn't that already on the path to keeping
But
open
Mr.
mind?
Mayor, I think it's important that this council and these people in this gallery understand, and on the TV, understand that what has been put in front of them is not true. That this is a good opportunity for this township. It is not going to hurt property values. It is not going to cause
I
the
can't- I'll let
hardships
you go
that have
back to
been.
your conversation because our bylaw on procedural bylaw is clear that we're not into, no member of this council is enter into a debate or discussion on the subject of the matter of the delegation. So understand that every accusation you're making, essentially the motion or essentially procedural bylaw says I'm not to respond to that. And I don't tend to. I don't agree with it, but I don't tend to. So I invite you to go ahead and finish your presentation. And by all means, if you have that specific request, identify it.
Thank you. Okay. He sent Mr. The true facts about this site is that we have a level 2 environmental study down. It is not a brownfield site that he has suggested many times to many different neighbors and whoever he sends his emails to. That is a fact. We, with his allegations of asbestos, of hazardous material, all in the work site area, we had our own engineering department and firm come and look at this material. The asbestos insulation turned out to be fiberglass. The floor tiles turned out to be ceramic. And the granular was non-hazardous and could be disposed of in regular garbage bags and construction waste. Again, an exaggeration, putting somebody else and another department at work for nothing but his own gratitude. And this is who you're basing your comments and actions on. His concerns about extra car and truck traffic on the St. Lawrence seems to only apply to us. During the high times at DuPont, hundreds of car and truck traffics went by and drove down the road, on the same road, by the same houses, using the very same highway interchanges as we plan to use. Now that Augusta has reduced its Operations and workforce, traffic too has been significantly reduced. Our daily usage is about 55 vehicles per day, in and out, 6 days a week. That's our traffic study. Our feedstocks only deliver organic material. Not so for the trucks traveling to DuPont for all these years. We are an industrial zone with industrial traffic needs. This man has sent misleading traffic information and projections ranging from 30 to 60 to 120 to 240 to 300 trucks per day traveling to and from the site. His complaints are hypocritical and inflated. Let's talk about the foul smell of garbage that may come out of this. This is a rational and well-placed question that we expected. Most people have no idea what a digester is. And that was the comments that we got from most of the people when we went door to door. They didn't know what a digester was or what it did. So we tried to explain it. We have gone to great lengths to ensure that our design and orders do not escape the plant of well operations. Environmental regulations ensure this. He brought up a lot of concerns about the London and St. Isidore plant. If you read the problems, these were mostly people not following plant protocols and operational procedures. All of these experiences of odor mitigation was well documented by the ministry, and changes have been made in design and equipment requirements mandated by the ministry. Remember, St. Isidore was built in 2010, London 2013. A lot has changed in 10 to 11 years, and we are up to date with these changes.
Just mention, Ms. Fraser, you got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done. Mr. Malenky raised questions about the accuracy of our application. Specifically, Sandra Kinghorn, the manager of Dino Noble, sent you a letter stating that please be advised that Dino Noble has not been approached by the proponent to allow storage of digestate in any portion of our property. Well, we have a document here, proposal for renter of storage and services from Dino Noble. This document was prepared by a person that works with Dino Noble, an engineer person, Graham House, that has worked with Dino Noble for several years as an engineer providing engineering services to Dino Noble. He wrote up with this document with Donnie over several months, and as he told us, presented it to Sandra. I guess she forgot. Sandra complained that we didn't give her information about this plant coming to her around her property. A notice to all adjacent property owners and tenants was delivered to Sandra on June 8, 2020. Her signature is on the paper. She received this document. She must have forgot about that too. There's suggestions. I feel that at this time, this is a moving document. With the ministry, it is a moving document. As we go along, we change things, we move things, we add things, and we go through. That's what the process is all about. And that's what we're going through. Comments and conjecture about Don's competency and capabilities are assassination on his character by the former plant manager and are unsubstantiated and shows malice. He spreads lies about Don and our project like it's gospel. Defamation of character is a legal course of action Don may consider. And finally, Mr. Mayor, your grave concerns about our plant that will somehow deter development and tourism along the scenic St. Lawrence. Our digesters and others are not unsightly. They do not spew smells, as you've tried to imply. Rather, they show progress, new technology, and commitment to fighting greenhouse gases. it opens up conversations about how we do things. We won't deter development, we will encourage development. Our plant will be presented to the public, will be clean and respectful of its surroundings. We want to be a tourist destination on the map for people to look at as they go by. I'm disappointed in you, Mayor, not getting involved with the meetings, not having the facts straight, and not talking to all the stakeholders involved in this $30 million project. This should have been your priority right from the beginning, almost 4 years ago. You've neglected to do your due diligence, fact checks, and support new initiatives and technology that is going to shape our globe in response to methane emissions and climate change. A community of opportunity, Mr. Mayor? I'm not so sure. Not so long as you and your Malanka pals are sitting in that chair.
Okay.
What we
you're
are
at the time-
asking
you're
at this time,
Malanka pals. I'm not beginning to debate, but I've listened to accusations flowing from you, and I've been extremely.
these are accusations that I'm answering from you.
From the Malanka pals, would you care to define that?
The Malanka seems to be the people that continue to be.
Seems to be.
I have
All right. I'm
all
not
kinds of
getting
emails directed directly to you.
complete your delegation.
We're not here.
What we're looking for, but our purpose here tonight is to let council and staff know that this is a good project. It is not a bad project. It is something that is due consideration, that should be given a fair chance, and we should look at all of the experience that we have out there, all the information that we have out there, and go with the facts, not the fiction. I just wanted to bring that to the council and everybody's attention. Thank you for your time.
I got a couple of minutes. I want to speak.
Excuse me?
Okay.
I'd like to speak for a couple of times. That be all right, or are we over?
No, it's limited to one person, and we've already I've given 20 minutes more than the first delegation. And besides.
Okay, I'm gonna call point of order. I agree that what's been done so far to these people, I don't agree with either. So I would like council to make a decision that I think he should get to speak for a few minutes.
Anybody want to agree with that? It's certainly within the bylaw. If you wish to extend it.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 minutes. Okay.
I'm Don Duncan, and I was accused that I don't know nothing about trucking. Okay, on this thing, and I've been a lot more, so I'm a normal guy, I like to do stuff, I've very experienced in trucking, I've owned a truck since I was 22 years old. I've run for 13 years long haul, I own 40 trucks, or 40 people work for me, I've owned 15 trucks, I still own 7 trucks myself. And he says I don't know what I'm doing trucking. So furthermore, I don't even know why I'm doing this deal. When I started, I bought the property for something else and it worked into because what was there for it, okay? And we are gonna have the first, well, not the first one, hopefully by February, 2 of my trucks are gonna be running on methane gas. Up and down the 401 and whatever. That's why we want to get this, the new technology. It's either electric or methane gas is what they want. And I looked into, there was one lady that talked to me, she says, how are you bringing in the waste from? So I looked into that with a, she said, are you doing a walking floor with a tarp? And I didn't know she knew about a walking floor with tarp. That surprised me very good. So I looked into that. So 3 weeks ago, I went all the way up to our supplier of our food waste. And I sat right in the facility that they were doing it with. And it's amazing what they do with this food waste. So now I've changed the way I'm going to handle the food waste. It's going to be more what you would call safer than a walking floor. It's going to be in a closed dump trailer, which is a bathtub dump trailer, which is totally, nothing can leak out of it. It's got hydraulic doors on the back, air doors that lock it. The tarp goes down and seals it. Away we go. There's no smell whatsoever, nothing. And we're going to unload it that we're not going to drive. Before we were driving maybe through it with walking floors. This way here, we don't even have to, the tires are not even covered on nothing. I respect my neighbors just as bad as I respect my plant. I'm not going to build the plant if I know there's something wrong. And if I know there's something wrong with my neighbors, My dad always taught me, never, always introduce to your neighbors. And secondly, another one is, I did talk to somebody, ask anybody that's on that screen there. We have our engineers, everybody there, for any questions you want. We'll give you a page. We've got 7 of them on a page right here, every one of them. And ask any of those guys to call me and I'll set them up with Benjamin. He's in Chubby right now. He's stuck down there, to be honest with you, for a year and a half. Ugh. He can't get out. He can't get a second shot. Isn't that well? Yeah. So I'm not here to smoke anybody out, and I'm not here to put a $30 million project and step on number 2 highway and say, ha ha, I stumped you out. That's not my thing at all.
Lectern,
Pardon?
please stay at the lectern.
Oh, sorry, I'm not doing that. And I explained that to some guys over there. All you gotta do is call me. I'll explain everything. If I can't explain it to you, my guy in Benjamin will. Call him right away. So anything you guys wanna know, and the people on the screen, I've told them, just give me a call. I'm not hiding nothing from
We'll
nobody.
open up it now to questions from council. Members of council have any questions? Go ahead.
First of all, Fraser, Duncan, thank you for coming tonight. It's true, this council has heard one side of everything. Each of the councillors here have an open mind. And I stated, when I was acting mayor, basically, we'll wait until we get the information comes in front of us.
Yeah.
Site control application. Seeing the amount of emails, we basically did do some due diligence and hired an engineering firm. And that was for our staff, so they can get as much information as possible. Because they have to report to us on the findings, okay?
Yep.
Pros, cons, everything like that. So until that information comes in front of us, this counselor, and I can't speak for the rest, has his mind made up neither way, okay? Until I divulge everything, it's just like it's business to us, so we gotta look at everything,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
And part of everything is yes, the staff reporting and the residents' concerns.
Yes.
They are a big one, I admit that,
Yes.
and especially with a couple of councillors living in a nearby area, so there's everything we're gonna take in consideration, and each one of us will make our own assessment when it comes time to vote in favor or not in favor. But again, thank you for
We just
coming
wanted to
tonight.
fulfill you on the way we do it. We're not brown, and we're not bringing 300 and some truckloads. That's crazy. We're not. We're right
There's
down
a
to
lot
what.
of
Yes,
misconceptions. that need to
that's
be
all we're here for.
addressed.
I was told there's 2 sides to every story, so
That's right.
I always wait till I get everything in front of me.
That's right. And
That's
we're-
all we're asking.
And if you need anything from us, you just call us and we'll answer your questions. If we can't, then,
Get these.
Anybody else?
that's right. We're not,
Anybody else have any questions?
I'm not hiding from nobody. We don't hide from nobody. I'm right there. And I'm right at the plant. They can walk right across the road and see me.
All right, I want to make a couple of things clear.
Yep.
There was an awful lot of accusations here, especially about me, and I don't accept any of them. I'm not going to get into them, but this idea that I didn't meet with you is crazy. There was never an opportunity for me to meet with you or to answer your letters. I have no idea what letters you're referring to. I was the one that suggested to the deputy to the CAO that we need to get an independent study, seeing all the questions and concerns that were being brought. That's my role. My role is to take everybody's question as being a reasonable one, and before I ask myself or this council to vote on any motion of approval or disapproval, I want to make certain of the full facts and that we're all dealing with full information. I did express that I'm concerned about some of the things I've read in there, and if they're not proven or disproven, then they're going to be serious. And when we talk about, an example is the headlines of other towns and municipalities. It's a fact established in the history of journalism, because it's there with the links, that there were problems, and they have many features of the problems that just wouldn't go away and couldn't get solved. And they were very impactful on the community that was there. So we do need, as the deputy said, we need to get down to the facts. And I don't think that the residents have anything to be ashamed of about sending anything or any comments or question they have. The question I have is, why wouldn't you have tried a public meeting if you want to clarify the facts it's not clearing the facts necessarily with this council. It's clarifying the facts with the residents who have expressed the concern.
Wait a second.
And we-
Just wait, I
You
did
respond, and
tell
then
him,
I'm gonna close
like,
off.
I know, I
Go
did
ahead.
tell him that, one person to say, here we are, just email me back, just say, nope, he says, I'm back in retirement. He didn't want to talk to me.
We, with COVID, obviously have an issue with having meetings or any kind of group discussion with township people or residents or anything. There's got to be a better way of doing it. I understand your concern. And we have been very open about having these discussions with the people and making them understand what the true facts of this project are and what is truly going to be the benefit of this project and what the smell concerns are and what the truck concerns are. And we want to make sure that the facts are the facts.
I'm closing this, I'm interjecting because I want to close this, because we lost more
Okay,
time.
thank
What's
you for your
missing,
time.
what the missing opportunity in this delegation is that the people who have made the complaint have not had an opportunity to debate or further question you on what your answers are. That's the beauty of a public meeting. You
Right.
get people to ask you if they raise a concern and challenge what you're saying. There's an opportunity for give and take. Coming to this delegation and making accusations doesn't impress me, frankly. So anyway, I close it. Thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we're then on to move to the committee of the whole. We have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Shaver, seconded by Councilor Henry, be resolved, council resolved, itself in committee of the whole movement. Is there any discussion? Call the question, all in favor of the motion? Motion carried. We're on to J, which is committee and staff reports with regard to the United Kingdom of Grenville. This was the third meeting, just ratifies previous motions that I've already discussed. So I have nothing new to give to you. With regard to the health unit board, there was a meeting last Thursday. We received an update, as we always do, from the medical health officer, Dr. Stewart, and she's a regular contributor to newspapers and to the radio, and so you have certainly heard her updates. There was an approval of a financial matter there that deals with the investing of the reserve, but that was not something that was a particular concern or interest to this council. So that's all I have to report for tonight. I'll go to the Recreation and Library Board to Councilor Coleman.
Through your worship, I don't really have much on recreation to report, as everybody's read, pretty much sums it all up. Library board, we have more night, but I just wanted to make note that they did a book and plant sale on September 11th, and they raised $700.
That's pretty good.
More questions, comments? Other than the one we already made? Thank you. Economic Development Tourism.
I'm meeting next week. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And ARAC, I don't think we've had one. I do have material to give you because we had the International Cow Association that's going to be held in North Grenville.
Yep.
And they're looking for volunteers and looking for ideas. And so I'm going to distribute it through Vicky's information send-outs, because I also have for you the draft affordable housing report that has been recommended by the committee to council for consideration. So
Great.
you'll be getting that.
Okay, thank you.
There's going to be a volunteer night coming up very soon, and I'll get that email out to you and your committee members.
Okay.
And I'll be joining with that also, and I'll send it to all of council. So look for Vicky's next email.
Okay.
Community development committee, we've got some things there.
Your worship, we did have a meeting last week. Mind you, it was just myself, the mayor and Michelle. from Maitland Tower. We discussed just a few things that had went on during the summer. We had decided that we were going to try to do a celebration for the September 30th, Every Child Matters, Reconciliation Day. And I reached out to a contact a few times with no response. So it's getting kind of close to the date to confirm anything. So I guess it's up to council if there's something else that we could plan.
If I can just add, we did have that conversation and we're up against time. And our thought was to come to council with any particular ideas. We have decided not to pursue the Indigenous person. We don't know what exactly the problem is, and certainly on a future date it can be fixed, I'm sure. Maybe related to the fact that it was last minute. But
Yeah.
the question is, A, do we want to have a ceremony which could be held here or at the tower? Because they've offered their property if they want to do it. The second question would be, would we have all of council there or part of council? And then the third one is, what should we be doing? Because our thought initially was to make contact with this Indigenous individual and basically say, ask them what would make a meaningful first recognition as council. That's not going to come, but more than that, I was telling Councillor Henry that I was listening to an Indigenous person on CBC, and she was basically saying that it's the municipalities who should be looking at the truth and consequences report and telling them what we're going to do about it. What steps are we going to take? It's consistent with what the wishes are. So it comes down to what our motion said, and that we were going to do something on September 30th. So what are we going to do? As I'm saying, the options are just to have some kind of a
Wearing the orange shirts.
Yeah.
That's what everyone's being asked to do. I think
Right.
that is doing something, right? If everyone is supporting that, if that's a possibility through the township, the staff, that's the big ask, I think, is just recognizing and noticing it's coming out to the schools everywhere and to any groups that's showing your support for,
okay.
that's what I think would be all right, but.
And that's in lieu of necessarily having a formal.
Yeah, if that's not, it's like everyone said, it's a very short notice, and to get someone to prepare something to do in front of, well, again, what's your audience gonna be? Are you inviting all residents? Or are you inviting just council or staff, right? And right now it's pretty hard, so. Personally, I think that showing our support by what they've asked and everywhere else is wearing orange.
Anyone else?
Right.
Okay, Brett.
I know, Council Public Works generally supports, 365 days a year, wear orange every day. Or my house down or whatever.
We need to borrow orange.
Or you, yeah, no, so yeah, no, we would, yeah.
You support it. Gotcha. Perfect.
One of the things that we may want to do, just suggestion, is maybe on our website for building up from now to, well, for the next week, have our deputy clerk put on, well, first of all, this area was the Haudenosaunee area, and here in Wendat area, the peoples there, which is the Six Nations of the Iroquois and everything else, so. And it's close to Thanksgiving, and normally what they would do is a Thanksgiving prayer around this time. So I went on the internet this afternoon there, and I found one, I'm not saying the language, but in English.
Yeah.
Because my redneck, Haudenosaunee, is not.
You're not on top of that right now, yeah?
But we can put that on the website, and what it does is it thanks Mother Earth and everything else. I thought it was quite good, but at least if we can do that, I think,
That's good, great idea.
you know.
Deputy, are you going to forward that?
Yeah.
No, you have to find it and do it in the other language.
Yeah.
Translate it.
So we'll
Yeah,
put
I
that
can-
on the website.
I can
and-
put something together.
So your worship, they'll put that on the website, and then the day of, Vicky has a Facebook post. And I don't remember the exact resolution, but I think it was just that we recognize the day.
Yes.
And
And that's
let's
what I-
not do a big
Yeah.
celebration
I
isn't the
can
right
put
word, but a big,
Something together and then
Yeah.
have it's called Thanksgiving prayer. And,
Well, I think even our discussion tonight is what they were looking for. In the sense that we're paying attention. And we have, and I appreciate the comments, suggestions, and I think they're great ones, and given the time that's left for us, I think it's meaningful and leave it like that. Is there anything else, other things from the community development committee?
I think so, because we only had a couple of us there, so we need more members.
Yes. We then go to the MEG. There hasn't been a MEG meeting. And I'll turn you to the CAO or to the chief, fire chief. Need one?
Through your worship, I do not need for anything at this point. We just recently went to, I worked with Matthijs, our recreation coordinator, to make sure our occupant loads were correct in all our buildings as per the code regs, and that work with Matthijs to make sure that the rec committees know about the vaccine passports. He's working with them on how to go about that, but I might just call out to make sure that it was actually part of the regulation. So other than that, that's cool.
Yeah, and then you look at the headlines about how great Leasing Glenville Lanark is doing with regard to vaccinations or highest in Ontario, and I think that's reflected in our experiences here. All right, then announce when something comes up. So I'll move then to a formal reports, and we have report 2020-076 recreation activity report. And a motion moved by Councilor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shaver, be it resolved that council receive the recreation activity report as prepared by the Community Development and Recreation Coordinator dated September 27, 2021 for information. Had that report, look at it. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Through your worship, really good report, Matthijs. And I had the opportunity to go to a few things. I went to the bike thing at the fire hall. I'm glad to see some numbers at Play in the Park. So hopefully maybe next year, if this is something we're gonna do, we'll get bigger numbers, but some of them are some pretty impressive numbers. So thanks again, Matthijs, for what you've been doing.
Great. Anybody else? Then I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion for information. The next report is moved by Deputy Mayor Shaver, seconded by Councilor Henry. Be resolved that the planner's report of September 27th, 2021 be received for action in accordance with the individual resolution. So those resolutions are coming up, and I'll just ask for call a vote on the question for receiving the several action items. All in favor of this motion? Carried. And now we go to the individual one. It's moved by Councilor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Shaver. Be it resolved, council direct staff to erect signage to convert Richmond Street to a one-way northbound and reduce speed to 40 kilometers per hour. And the council directs staff to bring forward bylaws at a subsequent meeting. Councilors, is there any discussion on this item?
Your worship.
Go ahead.
It's been a while since we visited this, but my understanding was the parking lot was to be on the east side of the establishment. Now, when I read this, it's on the west side. And I just wondered what's changed and why.
As a response for that?
I think through your worship, we'll let the planner answer that one, but I can.
Oh, there, yes.
There it is.
Mr. Belay, do you have something?
Sure. And good evening, everyone. And through your worship, I could certainly advise that our public works manager has been regularly participating in the process. We've had a number of discussions within the township office. I see that our chief building official is on the line as well, and she says valuably participated in a number of discussions, as has our fire chief as well. Our CAO has been informed. CAO and former CAO. Ray has been involved as he was the CAO before Brian started. Yeah, the initial proposal had been to have parking along the toward the eastern side of the property. There were multiple conditions in council's approval, if you will, that opened the door, that left the door open for opportunity for alternatives to be looked at with the United Counties. And so in cooperation with the United Counties, in cooperation with township, multiple township staff, the applicant essentially was able to come up with a proposal that identified an increase in parking along the west side of the building. We believe this will be a more friendly situation that will work out for Maitland, and certainly reduces the cost substantially. You can imagine the cost of excavation, and then base gravel and top coating and et cetera, all the kinds of things that one would require for a parking lot. Re-establishing parking that was there previously along the western side of the building by moving the shelters that had been there over to the east side will save a substantial amount of cost. I think that's been a primary factor here, but there'll be additional opportunity there for potentially signage on the property, and as we say, bringing more people into Maitland over time. As I see Mr. Ling is on the line, doing some very good work at the Maitland Towers site. Their work and the work of others that seek to come to Maitland and redevelop within Maitland, having additional parking spaces will be good for those folks as well. It's a proactive step for us.
May I answer?
Yeah, I just wonder if our public works manager has something to add to it. But
Through the council, Deputy Mayor, I'll add on to Myron's, our planner's comments. So the original parking was still in question. What would be the safest way? I did a comprehensive study down there one time at lunch, and it would be most feasible after looking at all the parameters to put parking back to the west, turn Richmond into one way. What that's going to do is alleviate a lot of entries, exits, and entries off Highway 2. Richmond Street goes to a one-way. We slow it down to a 40. It's just going to end up being a smoother flow, safer for people, safer for residents in the area, and safer for traffic, while providing more parking, which in the end is going to make that whole area safer.
I agree with the putting it a one-way street northbound, but if the parking is on the west. Okay, my question is, why the parking on the west? You have a curb there.
We do not.
Can you take it out?
They can, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you there.
There is a curb there? Last time I looked, there was
There's an island there.
an island.
You can get on and off of the property right off of Richmond. There's probably a 60-foot section between what I believe is Mr. Turcotte's new wall, retaining wall to the curb on kind of those two. So there's no.
So we have no intention to take that curb out, that island out.
It's that's gonna be up to counties, Deputy.
And how many parking spaces can we get in there?
Approximately 8.
You can get 8 vehicles in that parking spot.
If we.
I don't believe that. I'm sorry.
through the chair,
I know, but.
debate,
all right.
question and answer, accepted or not.
Oh, okay.
It will certainly help flow the council, I assure you that.
Therefore, I think it would be better if I personally saw a site plan with the parking spaces on it.
Sure. So the planner did bring a site plan forward to me. I'm okay with that. It was just more of a
I just
hand.
asked as a planner, Myron, are you able, do you have access that you can put up on screen site plans so that we can carry the conversation on?
I can do my best. I can mention, I would invite all the councillors to refer to the agenda package. Does does everyone have access to attachment 2 from the planner's report? The
Not at this point.
Okay, then I will try to share my screen, and let's see if we can pull it up that way.
To our planner, is this a time-sensitive issue? Does this need to get resolved today?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. The council certainly could defer it, just with the acknowledgement that the applicant had been requested, the applicant had been expected to address the site plan, to address the parking matter by September 30th. So if September 30th is approaching, but if the willingness is on council's part to, you know, potentially review this in additional detail. See, under the zoning bylaw, and I don't know if everyone, can I just get I could see 4 of the members of council on my screen. Can I get just possibly a show of hands, if that's possible? Everyone is able to see the screen, what's up there? I could try to zoom that in a little bit as well.
I think we're all able to see it.
Okay, there
Mind
we
you,
go.
it's smallish.
That's okay. Move it up. Can you move it up a little bit more? Right there.
There we are. So along the bottom of the screen, council, this is County Road 2, and then this is Richmond Street, roughly where this arrow is going upwards. The traffic island that was being referenced kind of looks like the shape of Pac-Man here on the southwest corner of the side, and you can see where the yellow line is here, the lot line. What Mr. Thake was referring to is the fact that this island is primarily you know, a matter that we can hopefully address with the counties. The suggestion here from a drainage perspective is why not have you imagine a letter V, the letter V, and so if there was a letter V, you know, directing water from essentially the north edge of that parking area toward the south edge of the
Lost
parking
the
area.
picture, Myron.
Byron,
sorry?
sorry. You had our picture and you've taken it away. We've got I don't know if this is you doing all this or.
Somebody's daytime or something.
Oh, did it go?
You going for an interview with Cornwall?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Cornwall? No, somebody else has shared their screen. I don't think that's me. All right, now I'm back on the screen. Let me try to pull up that window again. All right, here we go.
Had it, but it just disappeared. There.
Somebody may have shared on top of my share. That's funny.
I'm just gonna ask one question. They said 8 parking spots. I see 4 here. If it's going to be 4, I'll be happy with that. If it's going to be 8, we got a problem.
4 to 6 maybe.
No,
Deputy Mayor, under the zoning bylaw, there really is not a requirement for additional parking spaces to be added. But this is something that, you know, many in the surrounding community had called out, if you will, that additional parking should be added. It is something that we've addressed openly with the United Counties, that they address this, that they bring forward parking.
Myron,
Yes,
excuse me, please.
please.
If we need the photo, we'll get a photocopy taken here.
There we
We
are.
can't have multiple conversations going on. Deputy, what does it take for you
I'd
to reach with?
just like to know the number of parking spots that are going to be there, and if the island's going to be moved. You kind of mentioned that the island's not going to be moved, so that's okay. But on one hand, we got 8 parking spots, then 4 to 6, and the photograph I have here, there's no way 6 can go on there because we're on the grass. So unless he's going to do some excavation there. But if he's got 4 parking spots and they're marked properly, I'm happy with that. I just can't figure out why we can't get a proper site plan.
Get all that in our back.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
an attachment to it.
Yeah. It was too long.
Anyway, I don't think it should haul up the project, but,
But is it key to the motion which deals with erecting signage to convert Richmond to a one-way northbound and reduce the speed to 40 kilometers?
well, again, if the
Well,
parking.
I'm asking the
Yeah,
question.
which side the parking was going to be on.
But it goes to the question you just said, are we able to move with this? and get your other concern resolved, or
Yes,
is it
that's
impossible?
your question.
Okay, because I think then it's clear that the deputy would like clarification on this and an opportunity to comment further. All I want to know as chair is if we pass this motion, then does it fix in or solidify the number of parking spots? I'm having the sense it doesn't. It's simply the orientation of the property. All right, I think I'm getting noddings from both the public works manager and our deputy. Does anybody else have any concerns on council here? Then I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Apology didn't matter.
Oh. You should answer the question.
There will still be a professional site plan brought forward for a signing of a site plan control agreement, so that will be brought forward to council.
Okay, thank you.
We're on to 6B, which is moved by Deputy Mayor Shaver, seconded by Councillor Henry, which reads, be it resolved that Augusta Council approve bylaw 3536/2021 to authorize the signing of the site plan control agreement with Rob Thompson Developments Limited. Did anybody want the planner to go through that, or is it just simply questions or comments? You see a need to go through it, planner? Would you prefer to do it?
Certainly, through your worship, that may be constructive for the members of council because there was a version that was provided September 22nd. There have been approximately 7 primarily text adjustments, but a couple of improvements there to fill out the document. Those have been looked at in concert with myself, our treasurer, who's on the call. Our CAO has participated in a number of the discussions, and we've consulted with our municipal legal advisor as well. The other side has done likewise. If I may, your worship, would it be all right if I shared my screen and just walked council through the 7 changes relative to the copy that council would have had the opportunity to review already?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen then. All right, and can I just get a confirmation that it's coming up on the screen? We're seeing some yellow highlighting and
It's
some
there,
white
but
text.
it's not legible without glasses, at least from this end.
All right, well, let me start at the top. And the first change here is the date. So the date would reflect today's date of September 27th. I'll continue scrolling down to section 3. Very minor change there. We've added A and B to number 3. There for some reason when it was posted online, there were a couple of numbers that were available in that version of the copy. I'm not sure. There may have been some sort of error when it was related to the accessibility conversion, but it's simply 3A and 3B. In the next section, number 4, which is site development, we're offering section A, which is what you would have in front of you about the location of the buildings and the location of other facilities such as access lanes, fencing, and drainage works needing to conform to the plans that are included in Schedule B. Now, under 4B, what has been added is we want to ensure that that essentially this development doesn't block future development from happening toward the west and toward the north. So we want to ensure that if utilities are brought into this property, which they would be, then we want to make sure that those utilities could continue to be carried onwards toward properties to the west and to the north. So B reads, should there be future development to the north or the west of the subject property, the owner shall grant access to the water and sewer on the owner's property for future expansion to such use and development with no remuneration required to the owner. The second sentence that's part of that says, any disruption to the landscape of the subject property relating to the use and development of specific lands to the north or the west of the subject property will be reinstated by the owners of those specific lands to the north or to the west at no cost to the owner. What that essentially means is that the owner is agreeing to allow utilities, water and sewer utilities, to be extended out to properties further to the west or further to the north at a future date at with no cost being required to be paid to the owner. However, if there's digging of the properties, if there's excavation, if there's equipment that needs to roll through the developer's property, the Rob Thompson Development's property, at a future date, let's say 2 years in the future, if the property to the north is developed and they want to extend utilities there, subject to other agreements being worked out with Prescott, et cetera, then it's saying that those parties would be responsible to repair the landscaping, restore it to the normal state. If there was a fence torn down, they'd put the fence back. If the grass was torn up and landscaping flowers were ripped up, they'd have to repair the grass and the flowers. If I continue scrolling down then just to section 7, there's a blank line in the section that talks about defaults. We have continued discussion about the amount of financial security, and just for the purpose of resolving it for tonight's meeting, we're simply suggesting that where the yellow highlighting is, I'll read the whole sentence so that it makes sense. After having first notified the owner, the township may at any time authorize the use of the whole or any part of the amount of the financial security to be determined by mutual agreement between the owner and the township, to be provided as cash performance bond or a bank letter or credit to pay the cost of any work that the township's engineer deems necessary to rectify default by the owner or its assignees. It continues on from there, and so what it's essentially saying is, rather than putting in a specific number tonight, that we would be free to continue discussions about that at the staff level, and to resolve that based on engineering studies which are being engineering review basically, which are being done of the property. The treasurer, the CAO, and myself have all had a file sent to us from the developer where there has been an estimate provided of what we would call off-site costs. So it's not necessarily a cost that's occurring on the property, but it would be something like a street light that would be installed on a township or county right-of-way that is technically off the property, but is something that they are still responsible for under their agreement. We're just waiting on a similar report to be referred related to on-site costs. And now, if council wishes, we could certainly bring this back to council. It's ultimately council's discretion for council to make a determination about what would be considered a suitable amount of financial security, a financial credit, if you will, to be provided for this project, or council may delegate that to staff. We're just pointing out that in number 7, this is saying that that financial security will still be determined by mutual agreement between the owner and the township. If I go on to the next highlight, we're getting on into the schedules here. Schedule B outlines the plans and reports which are included. I'll just give everybody a chance to flip to that. Number 6 that was listed under Schedule B, plans and reports, was a draft registered plan of survey. Now that the actual registered plan of survey has been completed and it has been registered with land titles, we felt it would be more appropriate to include the registered plan of survey, given that it's now a finalized document.
Could you hold this for a second? Something.
Yes, please. Shall I unshare my screen or just listen?
Electronically.
Well, we got it on the thing, but we didn't, it's not in our package because it was like, that there's so much stuff, but she printed everything off, but it's hard to, we don't have anything to.
For me, I need versus.
Well, because we don't have what's changed, what's the proposed one that we have, and then I know we're getting the changes, but it's not.
Is council willing to go along, continue on with this understanding? I need comment from you. I was getting expressions that we weren't following, and I understand it because I can't read that document and I don't have the other one before me. I could hear him and I think I understood everything, but I could hear I could see some struggling. So how are we proceeding?
we want copies of the, I don't know how many pages it is, but.
It's a
I could-
lot.
Yeah, I could take
Like-
that and if it's in order, I'll just,
Well,
Well, it's a lot of different ones.
Yeah.
Site plan
it
agreements,
is a lot.
water.
Well, so far, he has shown us 2 pages, I believe, so.
I think that's just the site plan agreement itself without the attachments. If I could, maybe we just copy that.
Could you read that, Councillor Bowman, and see if that's what, our planner is reading from?
That's the, yeah, he's reading from the site plan agreement. Yeah, that document.
All right, let's get that one. Thank you very much. Does anybody want a short recess?
yeah, we might as well, until she gets that done, I would
All
think.
right, we'll recess for 5
For
minutes.
me.
Did you say sorry, is it a break?
We're in a recess, yeah.
I thought you said you want a cigarette. I have some.
Recess, we get to go outside and play for recess.
Deputy Mayor.
That's not what it
We're in recess, right? Deputy Mayor, I hope I answered your question.
Sorry, what? Takes a while.
You know why I'm here, right?
Can't wait for the fire truck. Can't wait for the fire truck.
That's just because you won the ladder. There's more down.
You suggested.
I can't wait for it either.
Do you have 2 pumpers now?
No, we have 3, sorry.
You have 3?
We have one
Two
main
more.
one at each station, and this one that we didn't replace. It's a spare, but we have to use it as a water source truck, which means it goes to our dry hydrant. So the reason we have to do that is because we passed our tanker shuttle accreditation with a pressurized source, so we have to have either a hydrant or a pumper pumping the water.
Considerably past. This thing isn't a month past due date. It is well past due date.
No, I was just thinking, for example, like Cobal's fire. You know, pumpers were what you needed to fight that fire, right?
No tankers.
Tankers, okay. Wrong terminology.
No, tankers that, we didn't even use our dry hydrant in Maitland because for a number of reasons. One of the ones was that truck so old and the water is so low right now. A truck can only pull 14 feet and change without starting to cavitate and be really hard on the pump. And we're dealing with a 30-year-old truck and I couldn't take a chance of losing my water source. You know what I mean? So I said, go and drop them.
You can't rely on something you're pretty sure is not reliable. If
With
you
it-
do and it doesn't work, you got a problem.
Yeah, with a house fire, 4 or 5 tanker loads, normally you either have it or you're not getting it, right?
We should do this with the camera on.
Oh,
so the
yeah.
Public gets it too.
But
The alterations that Myron is talking to you about here.
Yeah.
They're bad.
Sorry?
They were bad. They were
Yeah.
not in previous agreements. They would have left us with very little security. And not a lot of protection. So we have collectively, myself, Myron, Ray have, and John Simpson have repeatedly made it clear, no. 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 A much better agreement.
I think the one, this is the one I was initially on, doing my initial design.
So.
Yeah.
Well, this process started in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
So it's gone through a number of different shapes and sizes and
Yeah,
modifications and,
yeah.
you know, the market has changed for Rob and
Yeah.
so he's had
Yeah,
to make changes, we've had to
significantly.
make changes. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the time passed.
And then COVID kicks in and can't renew too much then.
We're going out walleye fishing on the weekend. What? I think we're going walleye fishing on the weekend.
Really?
First I heard of it.
Sounds like giving your seat away.
Yeah.
It's okay, you can give it away.
On the river?
Meeting Saturday from 9
Yes.
to 4. A long time.
Did I see you last week? I told you about 25.
Yeah, you were showing me, yeah, you showed me.
I was calling last week.
Oh, yeah?
30.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But they were around 45. Got a lot bigger fish than I thought.
That's what you say, Brian. You say I taught her all everything she knows.
I'm not even gonna make that attempt. I might have taught her a few things up until she was about 12, but she's an avid fisherman. Yeah. You don't want to be a walleye just nipping away at her bait, because she makes sure you wear it. A pretty good set of hands on her.
That's what
There's a friend of mine's a musky guide. That's what they call it.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's gotta be close to 50, isn't it?
I saw him.
Yes, that's-
Saturday. They mentioned-
Oh, there's another one. I just saw it.
They were enemies of ours.
That's even bigger. No, is he catching them down this end?
And they joined together.
He fishes anywhere from like a bridge.
Yeah.
To like a dare.
Oh, goes that way.
Yeah.
I don't remember, you guys fishing the other way going towards Montreal. This is a week ago. Week ago, Sunday.
That's nice.
It's funny because there was a lake they were on. Her boyfriend had just got this, pretty nice, 24-inch walleye.
Yeah.
So she sent me the next picture. I said, oh, here's this Steve that you used to get this fish from the east. I got the appropriate response. She says, oh my God, Dad, look at the size of this fish's head. Like, look at that. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Well, fishing for walleye.
Yeah.
Jake.
We're gonna try worm on Saturday.
Well, it's, how many reaches are, aren't there this time of year? Was it?
Oh, I can't take that back now. That was recording.
We're gonna try
Me walking in front of the screen.
Well, hard to.
He's got the thumbs up for everybody.
Off the wall. Now, is that down by the bridge?
We'll fish from in front of Prescott all the way down to Cardinal.
Yeah. Where you see the boat there.
We get a few bites, then, well, we get a few hits and then go back.
Yeah.
I don't normally fish for walleye. I normally just fish for bass. I don't try walleye.
Or something.
I like bass though.
Oh, no compare.
Okay, are we ready? Are we still on?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're back in session. Okay, so Myron, we have the document that you were reading from. Could you go to the last paragraph and sort of start at the top that you were dealing with? You any way of knowing?
I do.
Myron?
Hello, sorry about that, Your Worship. I was on with the treasurer on the phone and I missed that last question. My apologies.
Okay, I'm just saying, we've got the document that you were discussing. And if you could go to the last paragraph or the last change that you were discussing. Follow along.
70, I think.
7B.
I think it was 70.
All right. Thank you then. I'll just try to share my screen again. So I'm going to zoom back up to, we had left off at Schedule B, number 6, or shall I scroll up higher than that to number 7?
6 doesn't have a B. Does it? Not my sheet.
We
Sorry,
don't
I'm
have
in
a
Schedule
Oh,
B.
wait,
on what schedule? Is that B or?
Schedule B, yes.
oh, hold on.
I mean, perhaps I could just scroll to the beginning and
Special
just
conditions?
briefly highlight that there was the date was updated. There was a point added under number 4, which is site development, to address the idea that utilities should be allowed to be continued westward and northward from the subject lands, and also that if in the construction process to extend those utilities out to properties to the north or west, if that results in any damage to Rob Thompson Development's property, that the parties that are responsible for that development should basically recoup that at their cost. So we're just clarifying that the cost is not going to be borne by Rob Thompson Developments, by the owner of the property. It'll be borne by whoever ends up extending the utilities beyond his property. If they mess up his grass, or run a bulldozer over the flowers, or tear a fence down or something like that to put utilities through, those costs will be their responsibility. Down in number 7, there would be perhaps a blank line showing up in the main first paragraph there. The section that's highlighted here is just saying that for the purpose of tonight, there's not a blank line. We're saying that the amount of financial security will be determined by mutual agreement between the owner and the township. They are in the process of providing us with documentation. We have received information from their engineering team about off-site costs that are being expected, things like street lights, and then they will be providing us with a costing of on-site infrastructure-related costs as well to inform us. In the Schedule B, which outlines the plans and reports, on the version that you may have in front of you, number 6 under plans had listed a draft plan of subdivision, or a draft plan of survey, my apologies. Now that has been formally registered. So rather than include the draft, we thought it would be more appropriate to include the plan of survey that actually has been registered with land titles. That's the most up to date. In Schedule C, which outlines the conditions, number 13 in that section, we've added one sentence after the main section that discusses the Town of Prescott bylaw, and the owner is agreeing to pay the full cost of connecting the water and sewer utilities. The sentence that's being added is, in the event that the owner and the Town of Prescott reach a separate agreement to install a water loop within the property, any additional costs related to that agreement will be considered separate from this clause. So we're just clarifying that because the owner is agreeing to pay the full cost of water and sewer utilities that are coming from the Town of Prescott. Offline, there has been a separate discussion that has been taking place between the Town of Prescott and the owner. When one extends utilities out, if you end up with kind of an end line, kind of like on your hand, right? You have your fingers and your thumb that extend out from your hand. At the end of your finger, or at the very end of your thumb, that ends up, in a drainage sense, that ends up being a location where they would have to periodically flush out the line in those locations. So to avoid the need for that in the future, they're working on a separate agreement to install what we call a water loop within the property. Our drainage superintendent, if he's still in the room, may be able to provide a little bit more information on that if any is required. But it's just saying that while the owner is agreeing to pay the full cost of connecting water and sewer utilities from the Town of Prescott, anything that relates to this business of a water loop is a separate discussion. And so the owner may not necessarily be responsible for the cost of that. It may be the Town of Prescott that covers the cost of that water loop. We're just providing that clarification. If we keep scrolling down to section E, this is where we get into a few of the details about the financing agreement between the owner and the township. 2D, which discusses the interest rate, it was suggested that we include the phrase 2.6%, 6.7% per annum, calculated monthly, not in advance. So the words calculated monthly, not in advance has been added in there for clarification of the interest rate and how it's worked out. And then in number 3, it initially had said this loan is to be secured by a first mortgage, but in discussion with the developer, we now understand better that there will be millions of dollars of construction financing that will be required, and then the party or the institution that is providing that first mortgage, that mortgage financing is going to want the first position, if you will, on the land title, which we accept. So we've added a comma in there to say, we would also accept the second mortgage where the first mortgage on the property does not exceed $7 million. And that's based on an estimated capital value of the build out of approximately $10 million. So 7 million is about 70% of that. There's still some wiggle room then to play with if for whatever reason there ended up being a little dip in the market. That way we're still protected and we'll be able to be covered on that second mortgage. That's the main adjustments there on the site plan control agreement relative to the one that was posted online and relative to the one that was made available dated September 22nd. I'm happy to try to answer any questions. Please note that our treasurer is also available and our public works manager are available if any of the questions relate specifically to finance and treasury or public works matters.
Any member of council have any questions? Seeing none, so I think we're at the point of calling the question.
What,
Go ahead.
is everybody else comfortable with everything? I would like it to see it deferred. That's a lot of new information and I don't know what the timeline is. I don't know if I was fully up on this, reading all the attachments good enough. Personally, I don't know if everyone else is like that, if everyone else is okay with it.
Well,
This is a big thing for us, I think. It's a big thing. We need to make sure we're all on the same page. I don't feel comfortable right this moment.
proposal to defer for a CAO, is this time sensitive?
As our planner Myron was saying earlier direction was to have this in place by the 30th of September.
I thought that was for the other one. Was that for the fund?
Yes, sorry, for clarification, that was for, that was a particular condition that was attached to an approval for the Bud the Spud property. But I think another way we might be able to answer that question is to say that all development is time sensitive.
Can you repeat that?
All
development is
development is time sensitive. Developers
Well,
always
I
want
wanted in terms of the conversations that Rob has had with staff saying that he's got to get going with this project or it's at risk. That's not timely, as usual.
He certainly would like it to be dealt with as soon as possible, and we were hoping that tonight would be as soon as possible.
Okay, we've talked about this around council, is that if council members don't feel that they have the information needs, then I urge you to speak up. We have a motion from one of the councilors to defer this. Is there a seconder? Okay, anybody want to speak to the motion to defer?
I'm just, I'll bring up what the CAO kind of mentioned. In fact, no, I'll ask the CAO. Basically, they looked at this agreement and I think it was saying a lawyer was involved and maybe give us a couple words on that. Was he able to?
Absolutely.
Yes, we've been in discussions with our solicitor on several occasions on this to get everything that we believe needs to be in this agreement between our solicitor and our senior staff. We'll have nothing to add to this. We certainly recommend that this go forward. I do understand that it's a lot. It will always be a lot when we do so few of these so far.
Right,
And
it's new to us.
yeah, I can assure you, we've taken considerable time and effort to crossed every T and dot every I, to get this to the point that it's at now. Like I said, this process has started many years ago and has got to this point now, and we're getting close to the edge of, the construction season is gonna slow down if not stop. Or considerable costs will be added because they're gonna have to start heating parts of the property to do any construction. And, I just don't think that's fair. Because those costs can be considerable.
Each day, I get
Yeah.
it. I get it.
I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I would say trust us on this. We've gone through this over and over and over again. Literally for the last 2 weeks, every day we've been dealing with this.
Well, if I may, your worship, it's $173,000 we're looking at, which is actually in a mortgage,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah,
So-
second position.
And if the developer, for some reason, cannot, I guess the question is, what happens then?
Well, Myron, you and I talked about this at length. You may be the one to speak to this. So go right ahead.
Thank you, through your worship and via the CAO. I certainly would be willing to give the treasurer an opportunity to speak to matters relating to the mortgage. The point that I was going to make was that this agreement, the bones of it, if you will, I would say that 80% of it have come from and are based on 80 to 85% are based on another site plan control agreement, which council had previously approved and supported. So the bulk of it, the substantial majority of it has already been through council. But with respect to the mortgage, this is really a first of its kind project. This is a multi-unit residential development. The council has approved. Council had approved essentially the project going forward. The rezoning has been approved. The site plan application was approved, with one of the conditions being that the applicant proceed through a site plan control agreement process. Now they've done that, and this financing piece of it, yes, there's a dollar cost, there's a dollar value that is required to be paid to the town of Prescott in order to connect that sewer infrastructure. Intermunicipal agreements being what they are, this is something that we've been discussing with our third-party consultant, MDB Insight, relating to continuing to extend future utilities outward into Augusta Township we don't have the exact number in front of us today, but likely at least several hundred homes is what we've been advised at this point. I don't know if our CAO may want to speak any further about that, but this being a first of its kind, it's really there's in a way an initial agreement between, you could think of it like an initial transaction between the town of Prescott and the Township of Augusta, and then the owner of the property is going to be paying the township back those funds. We will recover those funds. I believe our treasurer would advise that we would more than recover those funds. The funds are not being offered for free, if you will. There is an interest rate that is attached, and so really all of the incentive is there for the developer to repay the funds as quickly as possible. In the event that the developer is able to get a good start on the project and perhaps take advantage of the remainder of the fall season to get some level of a start on the construction process, what they are able to complete. The sooner that they can get CMHC financing from the federal government, the sooner they will be able to to pay this all out and move on with getting the project finished. The incentive system is really in place there for the developer to complete the units, to complete the project, to connect the utilities, to create the 20 units of housing. So they're trying to create a win-win-win for all parties involved.
But Myron, I think the specific question the council's asking here is, so what if the developer is unable to go forward?
something happens and then we've lent them the money and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, worst case scenario goes bankrupt or it doesn't work out quite right, what is our security of 100% getting this money back? That's what we need to know, because we need to make sure that we're lending money that is 100% guaranteed that we get back to this township and the residents, right? That's what I want to know.
All right, thank you then. Through your worship, and I see our treasurer has clicked on his video as well. Ray, would you prefer to answer? Or would you prefer me to take a small stab at it and then you continue from there?
You take the small stab and then I'll come in. Sorry.
All right, here goes. So essentially, the property itself is the securities. So much like a conventional mortgage that one would have, purchasing a vacant piece of property and then building a home on that property. There's a mortgage attached to that property where if somebody doesn't pay their mortgage, then the property ends up being turned over to the parties that control the mortgage. So commonly, homeowners, let's say, it's not uncommon for a homeowner to have a first mortgage on their property and then to have a second mortgage on their property, even sometimes a third mortgage, depending on how the financing is structured. And in a sense, this is just a larger version of that scenario where the developer would have a first mortgage. Their first mortgage would be really the largest bulk of the financing that would allow them to extend the financing up to their initial financing of $6 million initially, where we would then have a second mortgage position to that once they were able to get their required financing from CMHC, Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, that they are able to go up to $7 million under the terms that we have outlined, and again that we've run by our municipal solicitor. We would have a secondary mortgage position to that. Again, the anticipation is that, based on today's market, the value of the overall project could end up being $10 million. If things continue going the way they are, it could very well end up being worth even more than that. Generally speaking, I mean, right, they're not making any more land. If one were to look at a house in Toronto or a house in Vancouver, if you were to ask them 50 years ago whether their house would be worth $1 million someday, they'd say, well, that's crazy. And similarly in Augusta, properties have gone up in value substantially. So in all likelihood, the value will increase. That just further protects the risk profile and the risk threshold of the township here. If it's worth 10 and they can borrow up to 7, and then we're a second position on that.
Byron, the
yes.
mayor is speaking.
Back to you, please.
I think you've surpassed with information the mere question that was asked. And my concern is that we're starting to generate a lot more questions. So I'm going to go to the treasurer and ask if he can provide us with a clearer question without going too far into the philosophy and theory of the situation.
So I was doing a good presentation there. So all I'll say, so we have a standard mortgage with standard terms drafted by our legal advisor. So like any other mortgage, it was actually taken. So that's our first line of protection. The second line of protection is it shall be registered on title. And there's a clause in it that if default occurs, it's further backed up. The defaulted amount will become and treated equally as municipal taxes. The value of that property, whether there's building on it or not, would exceed. So we eventually could get our payment back if it's default, like the bank comes and takes your house. We would come and have the loan on the tax base. So it's a valuable piece of property, and the next buyer, whoever buys it, would pay us in lieu of taxes.
The third item to consider is until it's paid, we still own the rights. And so this is essentially a development fee that he's mortgaging. The right to get water from Prescott. That we retain that until the mortgage is paid. So if he defaults, we still have that 20 unit right. And that is a value, that's an asset in its own right that would transfer to the next buyer. So for those three conditions, we're better covered than a typical mortgage on a house or any other property. I hope, does that answer the question? It wasn't brief, but it's a little more layered than most mortgages. So I think we are adequately covered, and we've reviewed that. Our legal advisor is comfortable with the layering, and the developer is as well, that it's not, that they can live with it. And in comparison to the overall value of the project, it's a smaller amount. The $6 million is the construction portion, and is thinking it should be in the value of $10 to $11 million. And so it's well discounted. The other mortgage is well discounted to begin with.
For the deputy, I think that initial question was yours. Did you get what you needed?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with, we're gonna get the taxes from these units every year. We've got $176,000 or $173,000 mortgage, which is guaranteed. And again, we're earning interest off it. It just makes business sense. And we got that Prescott gets the water, for example, the water income. So, and it opens the door for future development, so I'm comfortable with it.
All right, thank you. So the motion is to defer or not. Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion of deferral? If not, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of deferring this motion to a future meeting, to the next meeting? All right, so we're back to the original motion here. If you want me to read it, I'll short, so I'll reread it. Be resolved that Augusta approved bylaw 3556/2021 to authorize the signing of the site control agreement with Rob Thompson Developments Limited. All in favor? Motion's carried. So we are on to protective services. We have report 2021-077 purchase of a used pumper truck. Motion reads, motion is moved by Dr. Coleman, seconded by Dr. Coleman. Motion reads, be resolved the council approve the purchase of a used pumper truck from Berindi Mountain Fire Apparatus at an offset limit of 82,200 Canadian, approximately due to conversion to US dollars for purchase and possible repairs. Do you wish to speak to it, Chief, before I open it up for questions, or just go straight to questions?
I will quickly, Your Worship. As council knows, I asked for, I believe the budget was 168,000, I think, in the budget to purchase a used pumper to replace pump 11. Really briefly, pump 11 is a backup truck that is also used to maintain our tanker shuttle certification for the vast majority of our residents, because we have to pump from a pressurized source, so we need to replace it. It's got some major issues. In fact, at the fire at Cobble, the Cobble Auto Records, it started to get a really bad vibration. They're taking a look at it now. They're not sure, what it is, but I've limited the truck to 80 kilometers per hour. It will be limited tomorrow morning to 80 kilometers on max until we figure out what's going on. Doesn't get to use a whole lot, but anyway, I have searched, and myself and a number of our officers have searched Canada from one end to the other for used vehicles. The problem in Canada is we use salt from one end of Canada to the other. And any used trucks that we'd be in the market for, like 2000, 2005, the shape of them is just, it's as bad as the one we're trying to get rid of. So we look to the states, and there are many, many very good trucks in the states. The problem with right now is that we ran into COVID. And normally I would say, let's go down, we'll take a look at it, and in Alabama, actually, we already lost out on a better truck. Problem was, where the American government would let us over to take a look, but the Canadian government wouldn't let us back. It was a few months ago, so we couldn't go down and see that, and we lost it. Now, this truck here is actually made in Canada. It was built in Fort Garry, Manitoba. It was used in Virginia, and then this company in Alabama bought it. It is a very good price. That it's 2,000. And again, this isn't a truck that's going to be on the road every day, not our main truck. We would normally go down. I would normally, as this is the only time, but our plan was to go down with our mechanic and take a look at it. And even if we did that though, our mechanic, he doesn't have any tools or anything like that. He can take a good look. He can let's do it, take it for a drive. He can find it a lot, but we can't do any diagnostic tests, pump tests, anything like that. So where we're at now with the way state of COVID, especially in the southern US, originally the plan was for us to fly down for 2 days, take a look at it, fly back. And then if we want it, we purchase it. It's all good. Couple problems is we have to take a COVID test before we leave. If we don't get back within 72 hours, then we have to stay like another 3 or 4 days, take more tests and come back. If, any delays, the other thing is if something was to happen to us down there, I'm not sure the care we're going to get, while we're in Alabama. So looking at the fact that, they're looking at the fact that really, even if we took the mechanic down there, we really can't tell a whole lot unless we do a run, we can't do a lot of diagnostics. They offer a 7-day, we'll bring it to you, we'll ship, we pay for the shipping, we'll pay for the truck, they bring it up here. We have 7 days to do whatever we want to it. We already have a plan in place if this gets approved, what we're going to do. I've talked to some suppliers to do pump tests on it. And that they will offer full refund if we find something that's major. They've already had their mechanics go over, give them the list of stuff that it needs. But they will refund the whole purchase price and the shipping price. And what else? I was going to say something else. Yeah. I did contact our lawyer, Mr. Simpson, we gave him the contract, take a look at it. He basically had the same concerns I have. He says he says really, once you get the truck, it's your truck, right? Because he said if something goes wrong with it and the company really didn't want to come good, because you'd be going to Alabama to try to force them to pay it.
Yeah.
Right. So but he said, you know what? He said go out and get some quotes, some references. So Brindley Mountain sent me a multitude of references in Canada. They said they sell trucks in Canada all the time. I spoke to, I can't remember the names and where they were, but throughout Canada, spoke to them and they buy trucks from Brindley Mountain all the time. So, I would recommend to buy the truck and move forward. I'll take any questions if there's any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Right, I think you hit all of the answers. I'll call the question and all in favor of the motion. So our next item on the agenda is moving to regular meeting of council. It was moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Chapel-Holman. What can be resolved, the council move to a regular meeting of council. Discussion, call a question, all in favor? So we're then on to new and unfinished business. Does anybody have any new and unfinished business to raise? Take us to M, notice of motion. We're on to N, bylaws. We have a motion for that. It's moved by Councillor Chapel-Holman, seconded by Councillor Bowman. Motion be it resolved that bylaw number 3536, 2021 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the site plan control agreement be read the first time, second time, the third time, and be enacted as read. Call a question. All in favor of this motion? So we then go to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements?
Worship.
Yes, go ahead.
Rabies clinic held at the Public Works Garage last Wednesday. Councillor Henry, and myself attended it. And I think that was it. Oh, no. The Public Works Manager
He showed up,
And
was
Vicky,
there
I'll
helping.
show it up.
and Vicky.
What about deputy?
Our deputy clerk too. So everybody did a great job. Thank you very much. And a good assortment of dogs. It's fun just to look at the different dogs. So,
I think around 90 that we were.
yeah, about 90.
Oh, yeah.
Down from a little bit last year, but Prescott had theirs the same day. So
Okay. Anyone else? Announcement? We're on to P, question period for the press. Mr. Lowry there, does he have any questions? Or anybody else from the press? Sorry.
any questions, Mr. Lowry?
I don't, thanks.
Thank you. So we're on to Q, which is question period for the public. Clerk, does any member of the public indicated that they have a question?
They all flew the nest.
Does any member of the public have a question?
There's nobody on.
I see a bunch of things on the screen. All right. So we don't have any closed session. So we are on to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, moved by Councilor Bowman, second by Councilor Shuffle-Homan, be it resolved that bylaw number 3537/2021. Confirm the proceedings of council of the Township of Augusta meeting held on September 27, 2021. First time, second time, or third time has been acted as read. I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Final, moved by Councilor Shuffle-Homan, seconded by Councilor Bowman, be resolved that Council be in our hearing at 8:40 p.m. until September 28, 2021 at 2 p.m. or to call the rest of the proceedings. All in favor? And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Continue, how'd the rest of the wedding go?
It was great.
Yeah.
Than I did. I left him there.
I was like, I haven't done it in so long. I was pretty nervous myself.
They said it was good.
Yeah. Well, they're married, so regardless.
Bad or good, they're married.
She's like, but then we definitely left the signed sheet out in the forest.